Hello everyone. I hope you're having a happy day today. My name is Ted Simpson. I'm a certified Bob Ross instructor, and today we are doing something extra special. If you're a long-time watcher, there's a couple of you. I want to appreciate you once again coming back and watching me paint. Getting a little despondent with my views, but I know that a couple people like to use my videos in their own painting journey. Gives them a little bit of confidence, I hope, to paint another. So, this painting here today, we're using a big old 18 by 24 inch canvas. This is the Bob Ross brand. You can see it's got, it comes out of the package lightly gray. It makes it a lot easier to get that perfect amount of liquid white on it, because it's just as soon as the gray goes away, you've got the right amount. Very, very thin amount. Now this is set up in an oval because we are doing a nice little tribute to the just released season 33 of The Joy of Painting with Nicholas Hankins. I've known Nick for a few years now. I think we get along pretty well. We've done some events together and conversed with him on occasion. Super happy to see this just show up in my feed. And I believe that's just about there. Okay. This is a painting, believe it or not, I've painted a number of times. This painting is known around the certified instructor circles here. No pun intended. I've painted this scene or something very close to it a number of times, but without the oval. And I think here with the oval, it just adds something a little extra special. All right, so I know a lot of work here. I just want that thin amount. You touch your finger to it lightly, and it should come away just like a fingerprint. You don't want to see just a solid chunk of white there. So, I think we've got about the right amount. And this painting here, Crisp Day in the Valley, is what Nick has titled this particular scene. I think it's going to work out just great. So let's clean up our brush here a little bit. Just scrub off the excess. Don't have to go through the whole washing procedure yet. I'm going to go into a little bit of the phthalo blue. Tap, tap, tap. A little bit on the corner. I got all my colors here. Look at what Nick did here. All 13 of the Bob Ross colors. The titanium white, phthalo green, alizarin crimson, phthalo blue, Prussian blue, midnight black, dark sienna, Van Dyke brown, sap green, and all the yellows. Cad yellow, Indian yellow, yellow ochre, bright red. Holy moly, that's a lot. So, as we typically do, we'll just drop in a happy little sky and loading this up here and purposely leaving a couple of open areas here and there. Okay, super simple. Look how fast that is. Now teasing down a little, tapping a little bit back and forth as I tap or wipe a little bit of that phthalo blue, reloaded into the brush, touch of the phthalo green. I think I need even more blue. There it is. Blue, small amount of the phthalo green. If you can see just a hint, that's probably all it needs. And just going to load a little up here. Maybe leave a little in the middle open. Pulling, I like to pull from the outside in. It just makes it blend a little easier. Don't leave all these empty spots. Work some paint right into the fabric. Push firmly. Get it out there. We're going to come through and blend There we go. Look how quick that is. Maybe just a little further. You can give it kind of a V shape or a little S shape. Sort of just zinging across the waters will be the effect. All right. Bob, like to clean the brush right after. Nick clean the brush right after. Shake off the excess. Oh, you know the drill. But the funny thing is, and Bob didn't always say it, but Nick did, is put that brush down and pick up a dry one. We got a clean brush, but having it be dry, completely dry, it's a secret tip. Might not always tell you. That little bit of paint thinner in your brush, no matter how well you beat it or rub it on a napkin or a rag or whatever, there's always a little paint thinner behind and it can thin down your sky. So if you're having problems with muddy skies, messing up your clouds, messing up your mountain or whatever else you're putting on the scene, that's a tip. So the clean dry brush, working from the middle up, blending and softening that sky. Couple of finishing strokes. Knock the extra paint off if you have to go over any bits. Look at that, a pretty nice dynamic sky. Now you can blend this out to whatever degree of softness that you like. Actually picking up a little color up here. And you can fill in some of that open space, color it as much as you see fit. You could also make it darker if you wanted it a little bolder. But that's it. We skipped a whole step here. Without even realizing it, we created the second step, which was clouds. So, I'm not sure how to say that. See, Nick has the power here to say everything just perfect throughout his episodes. Me, I stumble and need the editor occasionally. So, going in standard Bob mode, we'll take a bit of crimson, not that much, a bit of black, touch of Prussian blue, maybe a little more crimson, a little bit of Van Dyke brown. Scrape, scrape, spread. Scrape, 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 spread. Pick it up, turn it over, scrape, and spread. That's a lot. I'm going to pull some out as flat as I can get it. I really like to wipe the knife, touch, scrape across, getting up a nice little roll of paint. And we're going to make, I just wanted to change the color now that I saw what it was on my palette, a little deeper blue. It's pretty black, but I wanted it a little more to the blue side than crimson. There we go. So, just holding our knife, basically straight up and down, just want to press, where do we want to put it here? Press, force it right into the fabric, and come on down. Just looking for a interesting outer edge, pressing right into the fabric. Now I can go, because I am not subject to the strict time limits Nick had there, I can go back and fiddle with this a little bit more, as much or as little as I want. But I try not to. The more you try, I find it easier for things to get away from you. You know, if you just keep going over it, 600 times there, something tends to go a little weird. So, all I really need is a nice clean outer edge, just pushing firmly, creating that nice clean border. And then I lift my blade up a little and scrape the excess off. Now, if there's some spots that need a little filling in, you just push the paint on and scrape it off. See that? You can do that with just little combinations of angle changes. That's what you're seeing Bob and Nick do, and myself, to fill in that mountain. Not completely, but getting some of that paint off. Now, using my 2-inch brush, we got that big canvas, gotta use that big brush. I start bringing some of this color down, pushing in firmly, and sliding that color. Try to not overdo it. I'm picking up a little bit of that liquid white, so I will lighten that mountain up if I keep going and going over and over and over it. Just want to remove excess color and figure out some basic angles of our peaks. Look at that, even this little guy here needs a little bit of it moving to the right. The rest of it goes to the left. You make a oopsie, just go back, change it. Look at that. No big deal. That's why they have the 1-inch brush. Sneak into some of those harder to reach spots. Isn't that nice? Just gonna add a little bump here. See, you can change things, add things, make things more interesting. And just blend and smooth. Look at that. Look how it gets nice and light down here at the bottom. Already, you don't even have to highlight or shadow this one. It looks already kind of three-dimensional. Another thing about working in your home studio, sometimes space is limited and you knock stuff over. All right, here we go. Let's take a little bit of this titanium white, pull it out. Nice and flat. Look at that. Push it out flat. I really recommend wiping the knife every time. That way you can see what's going on. Scrape across. Ooh, look at that roll of paint. Now, if you got a little too much, you can remove some. Make a smaller roll. Line this knife up so gentle. Touch. Give that brush a little jiggle. Just let it slide out. There we go. I really like Nic's technique on this one. If you watch that video on PBS, you'll see how he has this sort of it's like an instinct muscle memory. He doesn't even realize he's doing it. This little jutting, little bit back and forth like this. Creates some really nice breaks there. I have kind of my own way of doing it. But then when I try to incorporate Nic's way to my way, sometimes it works, sometimes it changes. It's sort of a hybrid effect here. Break up that line a little bit so it's not so vertical. Now, one of the cool things that Nic changed on this, different than I do, and I might as well give it a whirl, is on this peak here. He takes this knife and bends and swirls up. He creates this same wedge shape, but he changes the angle. And let's just touch, and you can see some of it did not stick right there. There it is. Just this little. That'll look nice when we get our shadows going here. So let's make up our shadow color using a hunk of white, a bit of Prussian blue, a touch of maybe even some phthalo blue, a touch of our background color. Pull this out. Ooh, that's pretty dark. Maybe just a little bit lighter. There we go. That's an interesting color streak going on. Now, what I found interesting here is Nick actually did not highlight this little lump right here, and it worked. It totally is awesome. I like seeing a little highlight there. And he is awesome. He is incredible. And I need to use the small edge of the knife. He's able to like sneak in a whole lot with that huge long side of the knife. But if that's a little too hard for you, just use this short edge and you can sneak a little shadow here, focusing on the peak that's behind. Okay. Now, using the long edge of the knife, you can see I can come right up here and just let this, ooh, there it is. Let it go. But on these harder to reach areas, do what you gotta do here. Find the angle where you're getting it right on the other side without really covering up. You really don't want to touch the highlight. Some of it gets a little bit trimmed off, you know, when you come right up next to it. So we don't want to leave like a big gap of shadow. There we go. Now, let's see. Ooh, we forgot that whole other side. Little bits of highlight. See, no big gap of the background color. Just getting it right up next to it. Sometimes we'll take our time, come back with the highlight, clean up the lines, add a little bit as needed. Any new highlight, double check that doesn't need its own little shadow there, and if it does, you just zing it right in. It looks better if you do. Now I did go over. You can see a little bit of the stroke there. That's okay. We can tease this up and create more of a blending thing happening here and there. Just give it a little bit of shadow underneath. Little shadow right there too. Any of these little gaps. I think Nick took down here and just added another little zing. Something that's catching the light. Little bit on this side here, got to give it a little shadow. And then this little front ridge. Gotta give that some shadow too. All right. Come in here. Let's bring that down a little lower. Some of this is just turning into mist, but we need a little paint in order to create the mist, so just throwing it out there. Now I take a moment, I take a step back. You know, if you're unsure about something, just take a moment, take a step back, and maybe we could brighten this up a little. It looked pretty dark, even for a shadow. So a little bit more there, that background color, if it's dominating the scene, add a little shadow here. It's a little brighter, a little bluer, figure out a color, and get it a little closer. See that right there? And just sort of tease them together a little. Barely touching, just want that paint to kind of fall off the blade. Let's bolden this up a little bit. There we go. Nice little mountain. So, I'm going to come back with my mostly clean brush and do a little bit of misting. Barely touching. Just tapping. and sweeping. Create a little mist. Oh, I think you might have caught me. I should have blended out my water a little bit. Nothing that needed to be done back then, but it's typically we do it at that point. There we go. So, my clean dry brush, all I'm going to do to blend out the water is go back and forth, pulling some of that color across the middle. Look at that. A little bit of mist at the base of the mountain. Looks like it's just kind of floating out there. Alright, so I'm going to take the rest of my shadow color here, my dark color I created, just a little bit of blue, a little bit of brown, a little bit of white. Let's see what color we make here. Sort of a bluish gray. That brown mixing with the Prussian blue is what makes that nice gray tone. Of course, there's a little bit of black in there as well. So we got to find a color that's going to work for us. I made a bigger batch of those dark colors, so a little bit of white to lighten things up here. There we go. Notice how I didn't use all of it? If I needed to lighten something up, I just use a bit of that dark color and add some white. That'll give me a color I like. We'll just go in here with the 1-inch brush. 2-inch brush is faster, but that's alright. So just tapping, tap, tap, tap. Just trying to create the outer edge of our little foothill here. Oh, and this one kind of meanders up. Little taps. Trying to create a nice, interesting outer edge. And then I start working it down. Now, if I want a nice misty layer here, which I am going to try to do now that I said it, I'm going to switch over and use my cleaned out, mostly clean 2-inch brush and just tap. Moving my brush to and fro, softening the bottom. You will see me going up. That's just to blend it into the darker parts here. I'm creating the softness with no paint on my brush and just using the color that's there, plus the liquid white I put on at the very start. That's what's creating the mist. Excuse me. Now when I go up, it's just to create more of a transition from dark to light. You want to do that briefly, okay? The more you keep tapping it, it will start changing things dramatically here. You won't get that mist as much. It all just becomes one solid color, if you know what I mean. One dead shade, as Bob would like to say. So, I got a little bit of paint on my brush here. Tiniest amount. And I just press in and pull down. I'd rather use a little than too much. Right at the edge here. Pulling down. Creating the start of some reflections. Now that I got the color on, now I just keep pulling. Softer and softer it gets. Still want those vertical lines. Don't kill them all. And then very, very lightly brush across the reflection sideways. There we go. The smallest possible roll of titanium white. I like to use the titanium white on occasion here. Liquid white works, or a combination of the two. Just a little indication of a waterline off in the distance. Immediately, I'm going to go into this slightly darker color, If it's not dark enough for you, you can always darken it. You know, a little bit more blue, a little bit more black, a little bit more brown. And let's make a second foothill here. I think this second foothill covers up a good portion of the first. Okay, and it's only going to come down to right about there. Change the angle. And once again, I'm tapping most of the way. And the rest of the way, we'll pick up a little of this color and kind of fill it in until it's relatively flat at the bottom. I'd rather be a little lower on the right side here rather than the lower on the left. It just wouldn't look quite right. Clean up that edge a little bit. Oop, made it longer. Basically creating the rest of this foothill just by tapping. There we go. Oh, I forgot to lift up. Tiniest little 1/4 inch lifts across the top here, just using the tips of the bristles, creating tens and tens of thousands of trees, approximately. Maybe more than a few hundred, but it looks like a lot more. Same thing on this, just lifting here and there, give it a little life. And let's grab a little bit of that color, pull it down. And soften it sideways. There we go. Now, let's see here. One last water line. Touching, bending, sawing, moving. Gotta fix this. It's gonna bug me forever. Strengthen this a little bit, pulling straight down as I can get it. Gotta be careful not to pull that reflection too far. That's what I did. There we go. A little tiny bit we can clean up with the water line. Maybe a little ripple there and here. Okay, wow. We got some things going here. I'm gonna come back here. Let's get ourselves, why not here? Look at this big monster brush. We'll use a big old fan brush for a little while here. We can get rid of this. If you were practicing painting, you just set it aside and use it for a different painting. But at this point here, we just want to make a big batch of dark. So, all of my crimson, most of my Prussian blue to make kind of a purpley color. Good hunk of black, a little bit of both our browns, chunk of the green, maybe even the rest of the phthalo green. So it's basically making a dark black color. Purple, brown, and black. Then we add a little bit of green to it just to give it a little flavor. Little shadows of tree here. Excuse me. Look at that lovely color. We'll try this large number 6 fan brush. Of course, I had to double check. What? Yeah, oh, yeah, it's 6. Big fan brush. Load plenty of color right into those bristles and then pull and smooth. Look at that wedge of color. Let's see if I can get the focus to change to the brush. Come on now. And we're gonna make a little grove of trees on a peninsula here. So I tap down, doink, 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 doink. just to get a little guideline for myself. Some people want to draw all the way down. It's up to you. Now, holding my brush a little bit over and down, I tap, and I'm tapping. See that? Little tiny taps for the top. And then once I start going down, you can see how we tap, let those bristles bend, and I'm moving from the center out. I'm filling in the center and moving out. And it all kind of happens pretty darn fast. Tapping in the center and going out. Just filling it in, going out. Just looking for some dark color here. You see me going over it. It was just to put a little more dark paint onto the canvas. Okay. Now, we know the drill here. I'm going to give that tree a little friend. Tapping down, building out those small ones first, and these branches just get a little wider as you go. One thing that works for me may work for you in your painting journey is go a little faster. It tends to work a little easier if you don't go in slow motion, like my talking just now. Tapping and keep that brush moving. There we go. Now we do want these to be a little bit lower than those foothills. That'll help it look a little more closer. See that? Now, right here, I'm just going to push up. See how it creates a little bit of a raggedy, grassy effect? And let's create our little peninsula here. That's plenty. Just want to get some color there. Everything could have been an inch higher and it would change the whole effect, you know? It's just, this is just looking even closer to us, and that's okay. So, before I put in my highlights, I'm taking the small palette knife here, cutting off a little roll of brown, and a little stronger push. I'm not just grazing off. This is pushing. It is slathering a little bit. A little bit of the Van Dyke brown. This is the shoreline here. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be dark. Okay. Now, when I come back with a mixture of dark sienna and white, maybe more dark sienna. There we go. Very small roll. Now, just like snow on the mountain, this is a light touch. Grazing over, letting it some of it come off, leaving some of the brown. Dark brown underneath as our shadow. Create that nice rocky effect. Okay, we'll come back and might clean that up in a little bit. You know what I should have done first? I should have tapped in a little shadow. So there we go, a little bit of this tree color here, even a little bit under the rock there. See, no big deal, there's no mistakes. It was just a happy accident. And we clean it right up with shadow. Clean it right up with this 2-inch brush. Get it soft. And now, like I said, we can always do a little bit of cleanup here. Add a little brown to cover up any gaps that are bugging us. And then a little bit of the highlight, just stretch that right back down. If you get fancy, maybe even a little extra bright stuff here, just in a spot or two. Extra highlight. All right, so a little bit of that highlight color. That's the dark sienna and white. And just like that, Push up a little color there, and just a touch here and there, indication of a trunk. Pushing a little of that dark color up adds a little bit of texture there. There it is, a little bit bigger there. Try not to overdo it. We do have maybe I should get another monster brush. Why not? Look at that. Now, if I knew anything about affiliate links, I would have an affiliate link to get the supplies on my website, but oh, woe is me here. But here's another brand new, somehow even bigger fan brush. Look at that. Wow. We'll use this, most of this paint, I think, but a little bit of the liquid white. And I'm going to start teasing some of this cad yellow in and working it back into my brush here, pulling some down, working it in, pulling some down, working it in. Just a touch. Very small amount of liquid white at a time. You don't want to soup this stuff up, you know? A little bit of the sap green now. Maybe a touch of my background color. We got a lot of that very thin paint, tinted to whatever degree of green that you like. And we'll come up here. Now, I want this big tree to be in front, so I'm going to highlight this one here. Just a little touch, get some color coming out, but not going too far down. Leaving a little open there. Change the color just a little. Just coming up here, finding a different color, these yellows. Coming up to the next tree, tappa tappa tappa, and then frowny frowns. And a little bit on this one too. Sometimes I like to come back with a little bit brighter color. Add a couple of final ones here and there, just to make a couple stand out a little more. Now, if I just wipe some of the excess off my brush, push up, let those bristles bend, that's going to create this fun little smash of grass vegetation here and there. Coming down right down over in between those rocks as needed. Push up. Try not to push too many times in one spot. That's where the mud happens. If you get it just right, gotta leave that little spot alone. It'll be such a cool thing when you're done and you're taking a look at it from afar. Just looks right. A little bit of titanium white, a speck and a half of liquid white, and I just moosh them together. If it's a little off-white, a little touch of brown, touch of blue, it doesn't matter. Cut off a little roll, touch, bend, saw, and move that knife, and it creates this little smear and a bead. Smear and a bead. Bead and smear. Not sure which way you want to call it, but it just looks like water. And you keep it horizontal, and it looks like flat water. It can't help but look right. All right. Coolest thing about this style of painting is the repetition. You know, we just did everything we're going to do over here already, just in a slightly bigger scale. So let's go ahead and put in well, it looks like we got a small tree here. Just a touch right there. Looks like he's got a little lean to him, doesn't it? Now, just getting this color out. Once again, tapping rapidly and just moving the brush consistently down. Beep, 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 beep. Tap, 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 tap. Building out the center and sneaking outwards. Look at that. A little bit more color. Let me show you something here. A lot of brush loading flattens all that paint. You're going to get a easier time loading from the pile. It's a little easier to grab some color and then smooth it down, smooth it into the brush. Now we got Mega Tree. Anyone who's taken my classes here know I do love the Mega Trees. It's much easier for students to see, especially the ones where they're sitting in the back. So we'll try to do a Mega Tree every so often. All right, now look at this. We'll make this tree. I know I'm painting on the oval, the vinyl. Just reminds me, making this oval used up my last bit on the roll of vinyl, so I gotta order more now. And you may ask yourself, and I have been asked literally 100 times a day, Ted, what do you do with the oval cutout? You cut out the oval, you don't just throw that vinyl away, do you? I say no, I save it. I do a lot of moon paintings in my classes, especially lately, and I haven't done any in a while, but now I just started doing them again. So we cut out a circle out of the moon to stick it to the canvas, paint the black gesso, pull the vinyl off, and you got yourself the start of a moon. So I use my oval cutouts, and I'm able to get like 5 or 6 circles out of it to make my moon paintings. Hundreds of times a day, I said, and I get asked that. A little bit of color up there. Wow, Mega Tree. This is 18 by 24, and I've probably made it about 16 inches tall. That's pretty good. So, I've got some extra color here on my brush. I'm just going to wipe some of it off first, in case I can go back and need a little more. See that? Let's come in. I'm going to clean my 1-inch brush here. We could do all this with whatever brush we want. There's a number of brushes that'll make really nice bushes. We could use the round brush and the oval brush. Just going to push some basic shapes here. Bring this right on down. Don't really need a lot of paint. One of the things I see people struggle with their first few times here is getting plenty of paint on, and that's fine. We want it dark. But if you have an extra, if it's all goopy, some real big hunks, it's a little tougher to highlight. And once you have some experience, it's not too much of a problem. But when you're first starting out, it can be a little tricky. So I try not to put too much paint on the shadow color of those bushes. You'll see why in a little bit. Let me get these trees highlighted first. A little bit of my, I can't really go up there. I'll do it anyway. There it is. Not very good, but that's all right. Little touch and a pull. For these bigger trees, you want to pull it just a touch to the side to give them a little more thickness, a little girthiness to those main trunks. So, loading in, it's my highlight color again. Let's come up here, and which tree are we going to have in front? I don't really know. Let's just do this one first. Tapping down. Ooh, I did that one super fast. You just find the angle, and then just tap and don't think about it. Let those bristles do the work. And there we go. And now you want to come back and highlight every single branch. Gotta resist the temptation, you know. A little bit of liquid white. If it's not sticking, just a touch of the liquid white. And a couple spots, a couple little extra bright ones. Just a couple. Just which ones are catching the light. Typically whichever ones you want. I almost said something and I wasn't quite sure that I was saying the right thing, so just highlight until you're happy. Try to avoid over highlighting like I'm trying to avoid right now. It's like every spot wants one of those super bright ones. I get it. There we go. So, I'm going to come in here and show you a little bit about highlighting these bushes. There's a couple ways to do it. You know that. And many different brushes to do it. Here's all this green color here. Let's just set that aside. I'm going to ramp down this yellow a little bit. Now just using, Bob will come in here and tap, tap, tap just a little bit on these top bristles. You see that? Paint's just up here on the top part. And coming out here, just for example, this one right here, just touching slightly above the dark. And working my way down to make a nice sparkly one. Now another thing Bob does, and we try to do, is pull and pop up. Look at that texture that's getting created right there. Now, the most important thing, you get that nice texture, lots of paint, turn that brush so that bottom corner is now the top. And you can come up here, a little bit more paint, and create a leafier, bolder looking effect. One kind of coming off the thing there. Changing the color here and there, adding some here and there, pushing out over the top edge of the shadow, and then a little bit underneath, gives it layers. Even just pushing, turning the brush a little bit sideways and just pushing up gives a little bit of an effect as well. Something like that. Now, didn't really do it all the way down because we're going to throw in our little path. Our path, like most things here, is just sliding on some shadow color first, and find the angle here where you're pulling sideways and just sort of slathering this paint from the left to the right. Or right to left if you want to try it that way. Either way works. I like having to kind of cut those bushes off. Makes the path just a little more visible. And you're going to have to find that angle. Try not to like pull straight down. It'll look like a cliff. When we're trying to make this look like flat so that we can walk on it. That's my goal here anyway. A little wider as I come down. Something like that. Now, using my same highlight color, or you could make it completely different. A little roll, and that very light grazing, just letting it graze off the blade, let that brown kind of pull off what it wants. It'll leave you the rest. Step back here. See, it's a little bright. Okay, now With no paint on my knife, if I graze over it, it will start to darken, and at some point it will all just kind of blend away. So if you don't like it, you can easily just scrape it off and try again. See that? That's a little too dark or a little too light. Just scrape that excess off. Throw a little dark here. Come back with the highlight. Hopefully a slightly darker highlight. Ooh. And let it be. I'm going to come back here with a little bit. Oh, just to throw on this dark color, I picked up this old oval brush here. Just to push in just a little bit of color. There we go. Overlap that path a little bit. Now I got my bright color. Get just a touch of the liquid white to thin it down. Pull, pull, and a couple of taps. Touch of blue to make a green. Plenty of color in the brush. Very light touch, and it comes right off. Let's move in. Let's just make a nice yellow ochre-y one here. Why not? Finding different flavors. All right, before I do too much else, let's do the reveal. You ready? Nice. Now, it's always kind of fun. Change the perspective, change the whole idea here is just to break that fourth wall and make that painting. Trees right, ooh, little bit of fuzz there. I missed it. Make these trees kind of coming out. And tap, tap, gotta find the angle there. Ooh. Tree got a little wonky going up there. Let's see if I can't straighten it out a little. There we go. And a little highlight. Ding, 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 ding. There we go. This one here really isn't up there. I think I can just tap in a little highlight. There it is. Nice. Okay, let's see. Oh, I highlighted, put some more shadow here. Got to throw a little highlight there. And maybe just bring this out a little bit more. Break that bottom border a little bit. Just enough. So when I come in here with my highlights, we can add like a second little layer of things happening. Various bushes and things growing. Like that. Now, take your knife and scratch a couple little sticks and twigs in these little dark areas. All the little shadowy spots, perfect spots to give these bushes a little bit of vertical life to them. Flicking up or scratching down. Back here, maybe a couple more. And then It's time for these details, you know? We can make all sorts of little branches, sticks and twigs. We made the white ones, but thinning down a little bit of the Van Dyke brown, maybe a little tree here. Ooh, big tree. Little things coming off here. A couple episodes there where Bob pulled out these little dead things. A couple little white ones. And there we go. Well, there is my version of Nic's crisp day in the valley. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me throw it right on down. Just a T and an S and a 2 and a 5. There we go. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you next time.